and not on the audio, but I was able to put a little note in there to myself. So this is part 4 of the Torah versus Halakha series. Which do we obey, and do you know the difference? How many know it's important to know the difference? It's important to know the difference between man's laws and Yahweh's laws. So what we're going to talk about today, and this is an interesting aspect of taking this, having no other gods against his face. And we're going to look at Exodus 20:3. And it reads, "You have no other mighty ones against my face." Now, from this teaching today, we're going to have to dig. We'll have to dig a little deeper, because there's some areas that I think that we're not always aware of and completely understanding of the words that we speak out of our mouth, how it can cause us to be a servant to another God. So we're going to go into that today. The words that is used here in the Torah for against my face are el panim. Everybody say el panim. That's right. That's his face, against my face. Al being Brown Jarvis Briggs H5921, which means literally to be against. Al, to be against. But the implication of the word is the same as the word Allah, which means to ascend or to go up to. Then panim, which is Brown Jarvis Briggs H6440, it means face, panim, face, or presence of the root word, meaning to turn towards or away from. So Yahweh is saying here that we are not to allow or make any God ascend towards his face or his presence. So let's see who would like to ascend to Yahweh's place. And we're going to read Isaiah 14:12-14. And it says, "How you have fallen from the heavens, O Hillel, son of the morning. You have been cut down to the ground, you who laid low the Gentiles. For you have said in your heart, let me go up to the heavens. Let me raise my throne above the stars of El, and let me sit in the mount of meeting on the sides of the north. Let me go up above the heights of the clouds. Let me be like the Most High." The enemy of Yahweh wants to place himself on the same level and even above the Most High. So if this is his desire, and we begin acting in an exalted way in ourselves, are we attempting to do the same thing? At All About Me. It's allaboutme.com. You know you love those people. It's all about me. Everything about everybody else around them is all about them. That's the spirit of Hasatan. So let's move on. What are the mighty ones? So as I was looking at this teaching, I thought, okay, we have to identify the mighty ones, because Father Yahweh said, do not have any mighty ones against my face. So in going through it from a reality check, we can say mighty ones are anything that you put above Father Yahweh and his desire and his commandments. The phrase used in Exodus 20:3 for other mighty ones is Elohim Ekerim, which literally means different, or another, or other gods that are beneath him. This could mean anything: a house, a car, money, family, your body, work. It could mean a big house. I mean, even I believe that Yahweh didn't use a particular term because he wants us to understand that this could mean anything that we desire or look to concerning our prospering or in meeting our everyday needs. Yahweh wants us to know that he is our keeper, and that other things like jobs, houses, money, cars, graven images, and even the cross that people bow down to, the stake that Yeshua was crucified on, does not cause us to prosper, but Yahweh does. In Yahushua 1:8, it states, "Do not let the book of the Torah depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you guard to do according to all," somebody say all, "that is written in it." Now, guard to do according to all. That means everything that is in this book of the Torah. "For then you shall make your way prosperous and act wisely." And then he says in Deuteronomy 8:17 and 18, "You then shall say in your heart, my power and strength of my hand have made this wealth for me. But you shall remember Yahweh your Elohim, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth." In order to establish, but this is the reason that he gives you power to obtain wealth. And this is where we've got to go to people when they start talking about everybody should be prosperous, everybody should be rich, everybody should have a Learjet, everybody should live in $1 million home, everybody should, really? No. Because he says he doesn't give it to you for you to obtain those things. But he says, I give it to you. He who gives you power to get wealth in order to establish his covenant. So if I have anything, it's given to me to establish and esteem the covenant of Yahweh, which he swore to your fathers as it is today. Is that not a beautiful thing? It's not about us. It's not for us. And the things that Father Yahweh gives us, he gives to us for purpose. Torah concerning mighty ones. Exodus 20:2-3. "I am Yahweh your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim, out of the house of slavery. You have no other mighty ones against my face." Part 1. Exodus 20:4. "You do not make for yourself a carved image or a likeness of that which is in the heavens above, or which is in the earth beneath, or which is in the waters under the earth." Part 2. Exodus 20:5. "You do not bow down to them, nor serve them. For I, Yahweh, your Elohim, am a jealous El, visiting the crookedness of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generations of those who hate me." So Father Yahweh is saying, Yeshua says in the Brit in Matthew, I believe it's the 5th chapter, he says, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. Yahweh says here in Exodus 20:5, "I visit the crookedness of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me." So Father Yahweh tells us what he considers as hate. And then Yeshua comes back and comes into the Brit in Matthew 5 and declares what he says is love. So we've got to look at all of his word. We go back to that word all, that we're to keep all of his word. So when we look at this, to bow down, the word is shakah, which means to bow, to prostrate oneself. The word to serve is abad, which means to work for or serve. We see in John 13, Yeshua washing the feet of his Talmudim, or his apostles or disciples, as they are called. He unclothes himself and he begins to wash their feet. Is he breaking any Torah by kneeling before them? Okay, don't answer. Just listen. We see no act of worship. As we see throughout the chronicles of the kings of Israel, on many occasions, people bowed themselves before Israel's kings. So why did Mordecai in the book of Esther have a hard time bowing to Haman? I want you to think. The clue to the correct answer lies in the intent of the heart of why you are bowing. Is one giving honor to the man as the king, or is he giving honor, or is one giving honor to the man as a god? Y'all understand what I'm saying? You get the difference between the two? The clue is that is the person bowing because they're giving honor to the man as the king, his position, or is he giving honor to the man as a god? We have to know the difference. The Most High's name. Why is this commandment set apart? Is using his name important? I mean, when people come to you and say, I'm going to pray to God for you, you should really ask them what God they're praying to. Who do they serve? We need to know what God they serve. Before they begin, you start soliciting prayer from them. Because we live in a country where there's so many gods, we really need to stop and ask that question. What God's name are you referring to? It's very important that we understand and know who we are referring to when we mention the title God. Because what we really have to get people to understand is that the word God is a title, literal. Bottom line, El in Hebrew. Anyone could be called El, a God. Pharaoh was called an El because he classified himself as a God. So in God, saying God, it's not enough when you are trying to portray the life and the walk of your understanding, our lifestyle in the Torah. We have to let people know and be very clear of who we are as a people set apart to the Most High. Is it really important to be able to differentiate which God is being spoken to? Would you say that's important? Yeah. The etymology of the word God is from the Old English. God, supreme being, deity. It also adds the Christian God, image of a God, God-like person. From Proto-Germanic, Guthen was the name that was used, probably Guten, connotates Old Saxon, Old Frisian, Dutch God, Old High German Gott or Gott, German Gott, Old Norse God, Gud, Gothic Gud, from Pi Gut, which that which is invoked. So when we look at this word, we look at this word God, we're also looking at it from the standpoint when it's used in a way where people are saying to call or to invoke this deity or to call to pray to. Is it important that we use the name? So let's look at some other gods. I had the questions about Yahweh speaking in Exodus 20. You know, they were just coming out of Mitzrayim, just coming out of Egypt, and Egypt had many, 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 many deities. I mean, so many deities. They had a god for everything. They had greater gods and they had lesser gods. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of go through some of these gods so we can become familiar with their character. So when we can understand a little better of what Yahweh is saying to us and also what we're dealing with in our realm every day when we deal with people who serve other gods. So the first question we have to ask is, who are these other gods that the Most High was referring to? To be clear about that, we have to go back to the era when the commands were given in the land. This information is pertinent to our understanding, and not that we should limit our understanding to the gods of that land, but that we understand the character, as I was saying, of these, so we are careful not to reference them or any like them when giving thanks to our Creator. Egypt was the ruling power of the world at that time. So let's look at some of the gods who were there. I chose the main ones who would be the highest ranking. Now the last one I chose that one because after they got into a place of dealing with Babylonian, or getting ready to go into when Babylon became the world power, then there was a god that the Babylonians looked more to. So let's start out with the first one being Ra, the foremost Egyptian sun god involved in creation and the afterlife, mythological ruler of the gods. So he was supposed to be the big daddy god, father of every Egyptian king, and the patron god of Helopolis. So we see this large sun-like looking thing over his head. That is an image of this god Ra. The next one is Osiris, god of death and resurrection, who rules the underworld and enlivens vegetation, the sun god, and the deceased souls. So he was the next one. Then we have Osiris's wife, who was Isis. We hear a lot about that. We're hearing a lot about that, that whole name. But there's a reason that we do. Isis was the wife of Osiris, as I said, the mother of Horus, linked with funerary rites, motherhood, protection, and magic. She became a major deity in Greek and Roman religion. Then next, we have their son, Horus. Now this is the one who was said was born on December 25th. Horus, a major god, usually shown as a falcon or as a human child, linked with the sky, the sun, kingship, protection, and healing, often said to be the son of Osiris and Isis. And then the last one, well, not the last one, I'm sorry. That's not the last one. But anyway, it's Atum. Atum was a creator god, and a solar god. So they believed he had to work in the creation of the solar system. First god of the Enid. The Enid was an extended family of 9 deities. What they would do in Egyptian culture, they would link deities together. So they would be like families. So just like in our culture, say our ministries, we say they're a member of MHG, they're a member of Ark of the Covenant, they're a member of Yeshua is Messiah Ministries, they're a member of Beit Hillel Ministries. So this would link them together as a family, as an extended family. And that this family produced by Atum during the creation of the world. The Enid usually consisted of Atum, his children Shu and Tefnut, their children Geb and Nut, and their children Osiris, Isis, and Set. And then we have already up there Baal. Baal was the god that was used during the time of the Babylonian captivity. We see the gods also of Baal during the time of the prophet Eliyahu, who was out there, and they were making up their doing all their sacrifices and stuff. And then the prophet called for Yahweh to come down. Yahweh licked up the water all around and set fire to their altars. So this Baal god was the sky and storm god from Syria, and Canaan worshiped in Egypt during the New Kingdom. So let's look at some places of worship to other gods. We have ancient and modern obelisks. Heliopolis, ancient Greek, the city of the sun. And that's where this particular, the one on the side, the ancient obelisk, that's what that was raised to. It was a city called the city of the sun, the city of Helios. And it was also called the eye of the sun. Was one of the oldest cities of ancient Egypt, the capital of the 13th Lower Egyptian norm. Okay, why is my computer shutting? Oh, my computer should shut down. Can I get your computer somewhere? So, what I intend to do was to look at all of these, isn't that interesting? We started getting into all those little gods, and my computer shut down. No, our God reigns, hallelujah. Yahweh reigns, he reigns supreme, no matter what.
That's right.
So we're not even going to do that. But what happens with these things, and why I wanted to show, is starting back up. It's starting back up. It shut down because let me go on back to the ancient Egyptian cult center. Janu, named On in the Hebrew Bible, was renamed Heliopolis by the Greeks in recognition of the fact that the sun god Ra, or Helios in Greek, presided there. Juno is mentioned in the pyramid text as the house of Ra. Heliopolis has been occupied since the pre-dynastic period, with extensive building campaigns during the Old and Middle Kingdoms. Today it is mostly destroyed as temples and other buildings were used for the construction of the medieval Cairo. Most information about the ancient city comes from textual sources. Only the surviving remnant of Heliopolis is the temple of Re-Atum Obelisk, located in Al-Masala in Al-Materia, Cairo. And I'm pretty sure I really tore that up. It was erected by Senusret, the first of the 12th dynasty, and still stands in its original position. It's about 68 feet high. Red granite obelisk weighs about 120 tons. Then we have the Washington Monument, which is located at 200 Street. What is it? 215th Street. What is that? That's not right. 21st Street, I think it is. Northwest. I don't know how I got that 5 in there. Washington, D.C. It sits on 106 acres, and it was constructed in 1848. It has 3 floors, and it opened February 21st, 1885. It is 555 feet tall. The Washington Monument is an obelisk on the National Mall in Washington, D.C., built to commemorate George Washington, once Commander-in-Chief of the early Continental Army and the first American president. Standing due east of the reflecting pool and the Lincoln Memorial, the monument, made of marble, granite, and blue stone, is both the world's largest stone structure and the world's tallest obelisk, standing 550 feet and 5 1/8 inches tall. Although taller than your monumental columns exist, they are neither all stone nor true, get this, obelisk. No other building in the District of Columbia can be built taller than this obelisk. So let's look at other obelisks. We have one at the Vatican. The obelisk is St. Peter's Square, Vatican City, Rome. And then we have another one in Caesarea, obelisk in Israel. Obelisks were prominent. We have to remember that Israel is overrun by Gentiles. People who were into worship of all kinds of deities are there. Obelisks were prominent in the architecture of ancient Egyptians, who placed them in pairs at the entrance of temples. How many bridges do we go over? And there's little obelisks on them. The word obelisk is used in English today, is of Greek rather than Egyptian origin, because Herodotus, the Greek traveler, was one of the first classical writers to describe the objects. A number of ancient Egyptian obelisks are known to have survived, plus the unfinished obelisk found partly hewn from a quarry at Aswan. These obelisks are now dispersed around the world, and fewer than half of them remain in Egypt. Man, oh man. You see how these things, worship, temples, high places unto Yahweh. This didn't just start. Yahweh talks to us about raising up or tearing down. He tells Israel, tear down their high places. These were high places that were built up in order for people to do their worship. The obelisk symbolized the sun god Ra, period. We can't go, you know what? You don't have to go any further than that. The obelisk was made as a worship place unto the sun god Ra. So you can't put one up in your house or one outside your house and then go out there dancing around and talk about I'm dancing and doing a worship unto Yahweh. You can't present this because you say, I'm going to make this and this is going to be illustrated and presented because George Washington was a great. It wasn't about George Washington. It was about the worship of the sun god Ra. That's why these obelisks were even made. During the brief religious reformation of Akhenaten, was said to be a petrified ray of the Aten, the sun disk. It was also thought that the god existed within the structure. Now we have to be careful, y'all. This is information. The Vatican, Israel, the Caesarea obelisk is a red granite obelisk 12 meters high, which is about 10.5 meters or something feet, which was erected in the hippodrome of Herod the Great's new built city in Judea and Caesarea. So what happened, because these people who were Romans and of Greek descent Greeks, Romans, because of what they believed, they went and they built all these things as a worship to their God. So we have to remember, it's not, people always say, I don't do it for that reason. I don't do that for that reason. I do it for another reason. It doesn't matter what you do it for. The obelisk was designed as a worship temple unto the god Ra. Why would you go and stand there and say, I'm sending up worship to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? That wasn't built for him. It wasn't given to him. That the obelisk was given and spoken of, that it was the god Ra resided in that temple. It was built for him. So let's go on. The many-breasted one. Now, this one is interesting. And this is the goddess Diana, who is also called the Ephesian Artemis, the great mother goddess. Also mentioned in the New Testament in Acts chapter 19, was extremely popular in the ancient world, as we might deduce from the fact that copies of her cult statue have been excavated in many parts of the Roman Empire. Proverbs 4:7 said, the beginning of wisdom is get wisdom. And with all you're getting, get understanding. So as we are getting wisdom and knowledge and understand, we need to get understanding of what all these things are. Now, let me go on, because I've heard this spoken of by many powerful, so-called powerful ministers. El Shaddai, the Almighty Sufficient One. Genesis 17:1 says, and it came to be when Abraham was 99 years old, that Yahweh appeared to Abraham and said to him, I am El Shaddai. Walk before me and be perfect. Yahweh is also often called the breasted one because of the understanding of the character of El Shaddai, which means to be completely sufficient. And the word El Shaddai is derived from the word Shaddad, which means great or mighty. But there is also a teaching that relates to the Shaddai to being the root word, or the root word of Shaddai being Shad, which means breast, as in giving nourishment, all sustenance and life. Shad means to be nurtured, as in a mother feeding her child. The milk from the mother being all that the baby needs. This tends to be somewhat controversial because the goddess Diana, or the one of Ephesus, is also called the breasted one, and was viewed as one of the more prominent deities during the Roman era. Even though the character of Yahweh is absolutely all nurturing, all sustenance, all provision, we have to make sure that when we are speaking of him, that we are making it very clear of who we're referring to. So should we go around teaching or ministering and saying, yes, you are the breasted one? It might not be a good idea to use it in that way. Only because of the understanding of this deity that has now, or from ancient times, has been depicted as such. We know that Yahweh is all things. We know that he is all sufficient in all things. That El Shaddai he's our all sufficient one on our mezuzahs that we put on the door of our homes. You know, I talk about that all the time, that the shin is put on there because it represents El Shaddai, the one who protects and gives all provision for this home. So But we have to be careful that people know who we're talking to. Because if you're talking to a pagan person and you say, yes, you know the breasted one, the great breasted one, they're going to look at you and say, oh yes, it's talking about the goddess Diana. We have to make it really clear. So some things, it wouldn't be wise to call him because of the place where we live and the time that we live in. Now everybody say, repeat after me, and Paul said, there you go. 1 Thessalonians 5:22 and 23. Keep back from every form of wickedness, and the Elohim of peace himself set you completely apart, and your entire spirit and being and body be preserved blameless at the coming of our Master Yeshua Messiah. So now, how do we keep this command? How do we keep it? Okay. The command is, you do not make for yourself a carved image. That's in the heavens above. That's in the earth beneath. That's in the waters under the earth. That's literal. That's what he said. Don't make them. Don't carve them. Then he says, do not bow down to them, nor serve them. So the word Father uses for the word make in Exodus 20 and 4 is asa. Everybody say asa.
Asa.
Asa. And it's Brown Drivers Briggs, Hebrews Concordance 62:13. And it literally means to do, to fashion, accomplish, to make, to do work, to make, produce, to deal with, to act with, and as to make an effect, to produce, to prepare, as an offering, to attend to put in order, to properly ordain, or to institute. So as we look, I just lost my mouse. There it is. There we go. Let's look at the word serve. Hebrews Brown Drivers Briggs 56:47. To work, to serve, to labor. It means to work for another, to serve another, to labor, to till, to cause to serve. So what is Father Yahweh saying to us? Jeremiah 5:19 says, and it shall be when they say, why does Yahweh your Elohim do all this to us? Then you shall answer them, as you have forsaken me and served foreign mighty ones in your land, so you shall serve foreigners in a land that is not yours. Romans 6:19. I speak as a man because of the wickedness of your flesh. For even as you did present your members as servants of uncleanness and of lawlessness, resulting in lawlessness, so now present your members as servants of righteousness, resulting in set apartness. Romans 6:1 says, what then shall we say? Shall we continue in sin to let favor increase? No, he says, let it not be. How shall we who died to sin still live in it? How is that? But when I'm telling you, when we find ourselves in a position where we don't have the understanding and the knowledge that we need in order to not do something, then we find ourselves at the mercy of that thing that we're not supposed to be doing. So is Yah's way or the highway? You do not make for yourself a carved image. You do not bow down to it, nor serve it. So finally, What is the Torah of you shall not have any other mighty ones against Yahweh's face? Is the Torah saying, as long as we ourselves don't make and bow down to them, that we're good? What are we saying to this Torah when we say to relatives, friends, or acquaintances concerning things that they observe? I've heard people say, oh yeah, you know, it's okay. I have respect for their religion and they have respect for mine. So we're going to look at that word, respect. Okay. Let's look at Solomon. Because Solomon did some things. He asked for wisdom to rule Israel. His heart was towards Yahweh at first. And then he married a bunch of foreign women. And then what happened after that? Can somebody tell me what happened after that? Because all these things he did right. He asked for wisdom to rule Israel, the kingdom of Israel rightly. He built and dedicated a beautiful temple unto Yahweh to worship him. But then he married all these foreign women. And in his old age, he took on all of these wives, and eventually their gods and their rituals. The word says, and so he did. Oh my goodness. And so he did for all his foreign wives who burned incense and slaughtered to their mighty ones. You know why? Because he felt like it's not a big deal. You know, it said he loved them. He loved his wives. So he wanted to do whatever made them feel good. So he respected their gods. We got to get to a place, where we understand the difference. Sin and unrighteousness begins. James 1:14 and 15. But each one is enticed when he is drawn away by his own desires and trapped. Okay, I need you to go back. Well, there's my mouse. And trapped. Then, when desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it has been accomplished, brings forth death. So then, your sin comes in. You need to address it. Solomon was drawn away by the women he married. It began as just letting them bring their gods in, then making a place for them. Then worshiping the gods. Then he began giving sacrifices to them himself. Because I can imagine hearing those wives, oh, please, honey, just come with me. You know how women, you know how we like to do. Our husband don't want to go somewhere. I don't want to go see that play. I don't want to go to the opera. I don't like opera. Oh, honey, just go with me. Just do it for me. Women haven't changed. We're still doing the same thing we were doing back then. And so here goes Solomon. Okay, come on. Well, do this right here. And then say this. And then throw it up in the air and say, whatever. Okay, let me just do this. Solomon found himself in a position because he loved all of his brides. He ends up doing the thing. This was a gradual transition for Solomon. This wasn't something that happened all of a sudden. It was gradual. So sin doesn't always happen right away. Sometimes it takes years for the transition. And then you find yourself far from the righteous walk of Yahweh. And then we see the understanding. But I want to go back to what the word, because I've heard a lot of people say, I have respect for them and they have respect for me and my way of life and blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to look at that word respect. Okay. We use the word respect sometimes when we're referencing other people and their religious or spiritual belief. The word respect, now this is the actual literal meaning of respect, means to admire, to value, to appreciate, to esteem, to have a high opinion of, to regard as in a sense of reverence. So let's look at the word worship. Brown Drivers Briggs 63 H6399, and the word is palak. Everybody say palak. Palak. Yes, to serve, to worship, to reverence. Do we hear that same word reverence in the word respect? Okay, let's, because I mean this is how far Yahweh says He wants us to be completely. In Rabbi Shaul, Paul's writing in 1 Thessalonians that we just read, he said that we will be completely set apart from them. So when we use that word respect for someone else's religious belief and whatever, we are referencing, we are giving reference to their worship or their deity or their God or whatever it is they do. Just like Solomon did. With the root word being palak. Brown Drivers Briggs 6398, which means to cleave. Get this. To slice, to plow, to cleave open. What does that sound like? Sacrifice? Or through, to cause to cleave open, to slice, to pierce. So when we say I respect their religion or their way of life, they respect mine, are these statements that are Torah or are they Halakha? What have we learned so far? That everything in this country, everybody's okay. We need to respect each other's religion. We need to respect everybody's God is on the same level. This is what they're moving to in the one world government, the one world religion. That's what it's moving to. And we have to be prepared for that. Because we, first of all, don't want to find ourselves in the position of Solomon. He had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines. And his wives, this is what the word says in Kings, in 1 Kings 11. It says, and his wives turned away his heart. And it came to be when Shlomo, or King Solomon, was old, that his wives turned away his heart after the other mighty ones. And his heart was no longer perfect, not perfect, with Yahweh, his Elohim, as his heart of his father David. And Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the mighty one of the Sidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. Thus Shlomo did evil in the eyes of Yahweh and did not follow Yahweh completely. Now, isn't that the word that Paul just used in 1 Thessalonians? That we will be completely set apart. And Yahweh says he didn't follow him completely like his father David. Then Shlomo, get this, built a high place. Now, we just learned about those high places. Built a high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, in the hill that is east of, right outside of Jerusalem. And for Molech, the abomination of the children of Ammon. And so he did all of this for his foreign wives, who burned incense and slaughtered to their mighty ones. Therefore, because his heart had turned away from Yahweh Elohim of Israel, who had appeared to him twice and had commanded him concerning his word, do not go after other mighty ones. But he did not guard what Yahweh had commanded. And Yahweh said to Shlomo, because you have done this, and I have not guarded my command, my covenant, and my laws, which I have commanded you, I shall certainly tear the rain away from you and give it to your servant. That's the severity of it. That's the severity of sin. That's the severity of going and not understanding and saying, oh yeah, well, all of the gods are the same. Yeah, oh yeah, well, I worship, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but they're all, oh, and you worship so-and-so, and you worship it. What I look like going out when Harry Christian people out there dancing around on the mall, and I go put on my little orange outfit, and I'm down there dancing around with them. Because I like to dance. We have to be in a place of maturity. Yahweh is calling us to a place of maturity and a place of understanding mostly. That the things that we say, the thoughts that we have, especially the words that we use. We don't have to tell anybody we respect their religion. Why do we always feel like we have to say something nice to people? Sometimes don't say anything at all. It's better. I worship so-and-so. Okay, well, where are you going for lunch? I'm going to so-and-so. You don't even have to address it. There's so many cases, and I'm going to bring about a point, and that's going to be it. We'll be finished. That, me being a dancer, when I was really getting heavily into dancing, I started looking into all different cultures of dance. And I remember I must have been about, I'm thinking I must have been about 15 or 16 years old. And I saw this, what I thought was this beautiful dance. And it was, when I thought about when I was doing this teaching, Father Yahweh brought it back to my remembrance and slapped it right in my face. And I just started repenting. I didn't know. It was a worship to the sun. And it was all these, and what I thought was these beautiful movements. From a standing position till you go down to the floor, and there's just, it was just, and to music. And it was called a worship to the sun. Now, I was raised in the church. Why did I think that there was something wrong with it? That's the thing that gets me. That you could be raised, a PK, raised in a church system, that you don't think that there's something wrong with that. And I guarantee you, knowing the mind of a dancer, that a person would be sitting out there and saying, ain't nothing wrong with that. It's a dance. It's movement. No, it's worship to the sun, God. And reflecting back on that, I thought, Father, thinking about it, did I do it to go against the God that I was serving? No. I didn't even think about Father Yahweh, the Most High. I didn't even think about it. All I thought it was a beautiful dance to movement, to music. Oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. And you had to really be in control in order to do these movements and as smooth as you could. And I'm like, Father Yahweh, I was old enough, read in the Word, I could say, you know what? I didn't just start learning scripture after I became an adult. People knew that we were preachers' kids because we could quote scripture right up there just like that. And you see that, yeah, Paul said that. No, he didn't. Timothy said it. No, John said that. No, Matthew said that. No, Moses, Abraham said that. I mean, we were raised in the Word and being able to quote scripture and know who we belong to. Why did I not think there was something wrong with doing a dance to the sun god? That's what I'm talking about today. that we have to keep ourselves and our mind and our understanding. And that's why I brought all that information out about these gods, looking at their characters. How, I don't care what anybody else says, and there's beautiful teachings on Yeshua being, Yahweh being the all-sufficient one, but I'm not going to call him the breasted one. I'm not going to call him that. I'm not. Because I don't want anybody to get it twisted that I'm talking about some goddess Diana. I want them to know that I'm talking about the Most High Creator of the universe. So what I'm saying is for us to think about the words that we use, things that go into our heart, things that go into our minds, that we have to be more cognizant of the devices of the enemy. Because he doesn't come as a ugly thing with the red ugly face and the pitchfork and the big horn sticking up. You wouldn't accept that. I had a good friend when we were kids, teenagers. She said, "Girl, the devil is a good-looking man." And I used to always laugh at her. And I said, "You know what? That's probably the truth." Because you wouldn't accept the ugly man. He walk up to you, you can walk away from him real quick. You know what I'm saying? But the devil is a good-looking man. He's a good-looking son. So we have to know the character of these things so that we don't fall to the devices. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.